Hi guys, my name's James Deere. I want to say thank you to Lynette for giving me the opportunity to speak today. It's the first time I've ever done public speaking, so if you can be patient and bear with me please. About 2 years ago I started a company called Break the Chain, which is a mental health based company, and the reason I decided to do that is because one of my best friends killed himself, and since then I've lost 10 friends to suicide, drug-related overdoses or other drug-related incidences. So today I'm going to talk about anxiety, because I feel like anxiety is the thing that kind of makes you either be able to deal with very difficult situations or not. It's kind of the thing that's underpinning everything. Okay, so has anybody here ever suffered from anxiety? If no one knows what anxiety looks like, this is what anxiety of public speaking looks like. Right here, this is a good example. So, okay, so I've had crippling anxiety for years. There has been several occasions in my life where I couldn't function. I couldn't go to work. I had to take 3 months off work, and I literally would sit and stare into thin air. And when people were around me, I was so intolerant of everything, like every noise, every knock, every bang, every statement that was said, I read it wrong. You know, I just I dealt with that for years. So before that, I was addicted to drugs for 10 years. So my life, basically, for 10 years straight, I used drugs before I got out of bed just to deal with the day. I couldn't do it. I couldn't face reality. So I was addicted to a drug called ketamine, which is famously known for tranquilizing horses, but it was also used as an anesthetic in the Vietnam War. And it's not as bad as heroin, but it's getting there. You know, the only place to go after that, if I really wanted to escape further, would be to go to make that step, which many of my friends have done, and they haven't made it. So that's a little bit about my background. So 7 years ago, I left the UK basically to survive. I didn't want to die, so I left the UK. I went to Australia. That's a considerable upgrade from the United Kingdom. You can see the sun. It's not always grey and raining all the time. So my friends would be looking at me on social media and thinking, wow, he must be having such a great time. You know, like, that's what we all do, isn't it? We always look at these things and think that must be so much better. But the grass is always greener on the other side. And in reality, I got there and, you know, I was still the same. The problem was that I'd taken my mind with me. My mind came with me on the aeroplane. If I could have left it, I might have done. But I got off, and my response was to continue to try and escape reality. So for 1 month straight, I drank alcohol every day, all day, every day. And it took me 1 month to realize that it was never ever going to give me the peace that the drugs had temporarily given me. And it was yet another thing that was going to destroy my health very rapidly, just to attempt to feel okay. So it took me a few years to identify that essentially all I was doing was self-medicating. I'm sure I could have gone to the doctors and said, I feel this way, and they would have handed me a packet of something that would have had a very similar side effect. They give out things like diazepam and Valium and these things, which are basically not also similar to heroin and going down that route. They're just numbing you out. So at this point, I got off the drugs. I realized I didn't want to drink anymore, but the problem was left unaddressed. And essentially what happened was, I attempted to escape reality through one avenue after another. So it went from alcohol to food to exercise to sitting and scrolling through my phone mindlessly, rumination, just being in my mind and obsessing about any thought just over and over again, binge watching things. You know, you can probably relate to something in your life where often we're not conscious of why we're doing something, but the only reason that we start doing these things is simply because we don't want to deal with reality. So I spent a long time trying to figure this out. You know, to say that I've been desperate would be an understatement. So we all relate love with these feelings of bliss, don't we? we all kind of like deep down in our heart, we all want to experience love and this bliss and this peace that comes with that. I found love to be quite an elusive thing. You know, I don't really know what that is. It's hard to put it into words. But I like to try and start at the other end and work my way backwards and try and figure out what love is not. So does anybody know what the opposite of love is? Any ideas?
Total detachment.
Total detachment. It's pretty good. Most people would commonly say hate or fear. But not being attached is it's a pretty good start. Okay, so if love is fundamentally selfless, then the opposite of love must be selfishness. Okay, so the ancient yoga texts confirm that this is called lust. So we often associate lust with sex, but in the yoga text they understand this to be a self-centered desire where you're really hankering after something and you're like really, really deeply desiring something. So what you said there by not being attached is actually spot on. So we tend to see ourselves as the center of things. Naturally, we have this perspective, don't we? I'm stood here and I'm looking out at all you guys, and from where I'm stood, it looks and feels like I am the center of everything to me. This is the perception that I have, and it's kind of quite natural to have this selfish, self-centered. I mean, so I have to say selfish, it has such a bad connotation, doesn't it? But self-centered, again, it sounds worse than it is, but if I am stood here feeling like the center, that is by definition self-centered thinking. So this is naturally what most people have this value system. So if I like something, if something feels good, I like it and I pull it towards me. If something feels bad, I don't like it and I push it away. This is something that we naturally do. We go around through life thinking, I like this, I'm going to pull it towards myself, and I don't like that, I'm going to push it away. Now, we become attached to things that make us feel good, and we hate things that make us feel bad. This is actually non-different to the way that the animal kingdom works. They react to things that make them feel good or bad based on fear and how they feel, and they're just pulling things towards them and pushing things away. So here's the good bit. So now, because we're attached to certain things, being a certain way, anxiety arises from this attachment. So for every single thing in the world that we want, for every single desire that we have, there is a degree of anxiety attached to every single thing that we want to be a certain way. So the more things that we want, the more degrees of anxiety there are in our life. Okay? So there's three types of anxiety. Anxiety because I don't have what I want, anxiety because I might lose what I have, and anxiety because I lost what I had. So from this you can see that no material thing is going to satisfy us because there is a degree of anxiety for every stage of material possession. Okay, so anxiety because I don't have what I want, I don't have it. Anxiety because I might lose what I have, and anxiety because I've lost what I had. So you can see that, it's so easy for us to hold the belief that if I get that, it will make me happy. And it's so easy for us to get caught up in that trap. So anxiety pervades all areas of life, and you'll notice that no material thing can make you feel happy or satisfied. The problem is that the entire system is self-centered. It revolves around how do I feel. This is essentially an attachment to feeling good, which I can tell you all about that from my drugs. Essentially, I was attached to drugs. If I had them, I felt great. If I didn't, I felt not so good. I struggled to accept reality of this material world. One of the things is you can't stop bad times from coming. I know Lynette spoke about this earlier. Bad times are going to come. It's natural. This is a dualistic world. There's good and there's bad. Both of these things that come. But one of the things that I think that we all completely forget about is that you cannot stop good times from coming. We get so attached to the good in the moment, don't we? We have a good time, and this has been a real crime of mine. Like, I'm having such a good time, and in that moment I will be scared that it's not going to last. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but like I literally ruin all the good things in my life by thinking, oh, this isn't going to last, or I don't deserve this, rather than just being here and now and being like, wow, thank you, and grateful in that moment. But you know, like I can, like if I'm accepting that's going to pass and the bad's going to come, and knowing also that the good's going to come again, there's no bother. You don't need to worry about that good time passing. This has been such a powerful thing in my own life. I'll say that again one more time. You cannot stop good times from coming. You can't stop it. No matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you try and ruin your life, you can't ruin it completely because the good times are going to keep coming. We can't always have things the way that we want them. Trying to hold onto these old feelings literally sucks all of our energy dry. Just spending so much time holding onto it, and it just drags us into the depth. The worst part about this is, as I've said before, this whole thing is completely self-centered. The primary concern is that we're worrying about how we feel in the middle of all this stuff, and we actually lose sight of what's going on around us. So when we're thinking about whether our life is good or bad completely, we actually lose sight of what our friends are doing, what our family's doing, and that's just even the things just around us, like let alone the greater world and the environment. And through our desire to feel good and feel happy, things just around us get exploited naturally. And in my addiction, this completely happened. I know, like I pushed my friends away, I pushed my family away, and there was no concern past any of that, and past myself. You know, can you imagine what 7 billion people look like who are all in a self-centered mindset? Can you imagine what that would look like? There would be greed, envy, anger, war, theft, murder, all the good stuff. And fortunately, the world demonstrates a reasonable example of this, so we don't have to use our imagination too much. There's a lot of this stuff going on in the world at the moment. Now would be a good time to talk about depression as well. So, depression is exactly the same as anxiety in the sense that it is caused by expectations not meeting reality. So we get depressed because we desperately want things to be a certain way, and when things can't be that way, we really, really struggle with that. Unfortunately, I've seen this too many times. So, not only this, not getting what we want creates a great deal of frustration. Frustration leads to anger, hatred, and rage. Now, once we get through all these things, we see these things in a lot of people, and we sort of like really like we don't want to be around these people. But the thing is that once you get through these feelings of rage and anger, all that this is actually covering up is powerlessness. These people are feeling powerless to not get things the way that they want them. And sadly, it's these feelings of powerlessness that cause people to get to the absolute lowest point where they think that I can't do anything else in this world. And they think this is the time I've got to check out because I've got no power here. And if this is the most important thing, if anybody knows, I know that this area has been really badly affected by suicide. I know that it's a big problem here, and it's unusual the amount for the amount of time. And if there's one thing that you can kind of help people with in that situation is understanding what they do actually have power over, so that they don't feel like they're completely powerless. So I want to read you something that's it's a tool that's used in the 12-step recovery program. That it breaks destructive behaviours in essentially life or death situations, but this can actually be used by anyone, and it applies to everyone because, in my opinion, it doesn't matter what. Everybody's addicted to something. Everybody has these patterns where they use things to try and escape reality. So I'll read it for you. It's called the Serenity Prayer. You've probably heard it before. So it goes, God grant me the serenity to accept things that I cannot change, courage to change things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. We need to accept that things can't always be the way that we want them. I know that we would all like that, and in this world at the moment, advertising and everything tells us that we should be happy, we should be on holiday, we should be prettier, we should be better. And the world is telling us and brainwashing us that we should actually have all this stuff all the time. And it's only to try and sell us stuff. And it's been for the past 100 years, they've really emphasized on this because they just want to sell more stuff. And, you know, they're not conscious of doing this. But we're the ones receiving all this stuff. And we have to kind of take responsibility and become conscious of the fact that we can't hold these expectations and hold this expectation of feeling good and okay and completely fine and satisfied all the time. We have to accept that these things are passing like waves in the ocean and let go of these things. So, as I said before, the thing that's really, really important for anybody who's really having a really difficult time is to find out what we do actually have control over. So, I'm pretty sure that most people know that the thing that we do have control over is our actions and how we respond to things. Now, that's what most people would hold that as being, that's something that we can control. I've been in a situation where I couldn't control those things. And that was really, really hard to understand. It's like, why can I not control what I'm doing? Why does my mind tell me that I have to go and get some chemicals and put chemicals up my nostrils into my body? Why? What is going on there? I know, and I knew this is killing me. I knew this was pushing my family away from me. I just couldn't understand why I was doing this. It's really, really strange that we destroy ourselves through our behavior. So I've had to dig so deep on this to figure out just how to even control myself and how to not die by the time I was 30. This is what I thought. I'm actually 30 now, and it's a real relief to be stood here doing this speech today. So the thing that we really need to pay the most attention to is, what do we want? What are our desires? At the deepest core of our being, what is it that I want inside myself? Because if all I'm wanting is to escape from reality, I'm going to do anything in my actions will manifest into escaping reality in one way or another. I'm not taking responsibility for any of these things. And once I change within myself my desire from all I want to do is escape from reality to it being, I'm going to live a life to actually try to help people, instead, my actions completely changed. My mind actually became more friendly. I managed to be able to engage my mind in the things that I had desired when it became to help people instead of help myself. Because helping myself didn't help myself. Not one bit. When I have anxiety, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I feel like this. I feel like my head's in a vice. It's just the worst feeling ever. When I don't feel anxious, it feels like this. And this relates completely to my self-centeredness. When I start thinking about myself, feeling good, oh, I deserve this, that, and the other, everything closes in on me and like that. And I know to get out of that, if I just simply start thinking compassionately about other people, things are like that. It just completely takes the vice off, and it gives you a sense of freedom. Now, this has been for me a really long journey. As I say, it's been 7 years since I left. 6 years of those were really tough. This last year, since I've taken, passing on this information that I have seriously, my life has been considerably better. Like, I just can't even begin to describe how profoundly wonderful it's been. And it's the first time when I actually shared my experience that I had the feeling of wholeness inside. I'd never had that. It was the first time when I thought, I know that I'm doing the right thing. I'd never had that. It'd always just been completely void inside. It had been dark and empty, and it's been such a relief to actually come to that point. And I made a video about this a little while ago, and it's not written in here, but I think that it's so important to share it. So many people in this world have been traumatized by something. We've all, at some point, been affected by something. We've felt incredibly ashamed of things. We've had to go through things that we wouldn't wish upon our worst enemy. And from these things, we get to make a decision. It's like, is that thing going to ruin my life forever? Or do I get to use this as an opportunity to inspire people, to help other people, and can I actually use this as a source of joy? And the answer is yes, and that's a decision. I know that I've seen that. I've seen people go both ways from this decision, and it's all down to that self-centered decision. It's like, it's an opportunity, and my addiction is a superpower. I get to come here and I get to share that with everybody. And most people are, oh my God, that's so horrendous. Everything that I've been through, it doesn't feel like it's a hindrance. It's really sad, but I'm not going to live there, and I'm going to stand now in the future, and I'm going to try my best to make sure that other people don't have to go through these things again. So, you know, I think I've written some stuff there, but I'd like to leave it on that point, because I think that that's just the strongest and most wonderful point. So I'm gonna drop that, and I'm gonna say thank you ever so much for listening to me. I've been incredibly nervous stood here, and I hope that hasn't been too much of a pain for you guys, and I hope that there's some value in that for you. And as I say, thank you again, Lynette, for letting me speak.